Very, very good morning to everybody, all the people on the panel and all the people who are listening in. Thank you all very much for coming here today for this discussion. Today we will chat with top leaders of the automotive industry on reimagining the product and the go-to-market strategy. Good discussion to have. I am Alokesh Bhattacharyya. I'm senior editor of the Economic Times. I am joined by my colleague Suchetana.
Hi everyone, very good morning to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to join us here. I'm Suchetana. I am a senior assistant editor with the Economic Times. I welcome all of you to today's discussion.
So we have a very powerful panel here today. Let's have a quick round of introductions. We have Martin Schwenk, who's the MD and CEO of Mercedes-Benz India. M. Venkatram, the country CEO and managing director of Renault India.
We also have with us as Vijayanand, CEO Amara batteries, Rajeev Chaba, President and MD, MG Motors India, Ashwath, Managing Director, Cummins India.
And we have from Accenture, Deepti Vaishnav, Managing Director, and Raghu Gulapli, Managing Director of APAC and LATAM. And from BCCL, we have Sudhana Trajan, Director of BCCL.
So yeah, like you said, I think it's an industry which is at a tipping point. Even without the impact of COVID, the industry was seeing significant challenges with slowing demand, rising inventories, rising spends on R&D, and not to mention some colorful trade wars and exchange of barbs. So pressure has been mounting on OEMs, dealerships, and the supplier community over the last many months. And in this scenario came the whole COVID shock. Demand has slumped in most markets by over 80%. Supply chains have been disrupted, and most stakeholders in the industry across the value chain are faced with significant liquidity pressures. And while demand will come back at some stage, I think the primary focus today for OEMs, dealerships, as well as suppliers is essentially around what we are seeing is three things. One is, of course, focusing on reviving demand. Second, I think building more resilience in their supply chain and operations. And third is really amping up the whole digitization quotient. So there's a big focus around, going digital.
My first question is to Martin. Martin, we've been seeing in the auto industry a steep decline in sales even before COVID. So perhaps COVID has only accentuated it. So what are the structural issues that need to be addressed?
We had a fundamental shock to the system after already 2019, the transition to BS4 and for BS4 to BS6, a lot of interruptions there already. So, but what it has accelerated is certainly should we operate our business in future. And one topic was already mentioned by Raghu, whilst digitization was in the cards, I think, for many companies. And 1 year ago already, we launched our connected vehicles. We started with an e-commerce platform. It really has put another focus on transformation and digitization across the entire value chain. And that is from the production to the sales environment and at the end at the customer usage and benefit. And I think a lot of that has happened and is not finished yet. So I think there is clearly a strong focus on digitization across the entire industry. I said production, but I should actually have said from the supply chain, because we all believe that this is at the end the key, that we have a seamless connectivity across all these different elements in the value chain.
We are just in the beginning. I don't think there is any end to the digitalization, but definitely the aspirational customers or the consumer is always trying to link product to product. So I agree with Martin that digitalization is the future for sure, and product being the hero at the center of the whole attraction, whichever is a product. Here we are talking about automotive, so cars are the products, and the digitalization and other features come in and get embedded into the car for the easiness of performance, and as well as motivate the customer to do things which are apart from traveling from point A to point B.
And we just sell the potential of the country. We are not able to execute it in the country. That's true. There are long-term issues, there are short-term issues. In the shortest term issue, it's a COVID challenge, but we'll come out of it. It's a question of another 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, and we'll be back to kind of new normal in auto industry, and we'll start achieving 6% growth to 8% growth easily. In short, I would say there are lots of things. It starts with reforms in the ministry or the governance from the government side, the road side, the financing side, and then scrappage policy, and give a clear outlook on the cleaner technology for the country. What do we want to do for the country for the cleaner environment?
You can tell us a little bit about benefits of a scrappage policy, because scrappage policy has been used in Europe, in the UK and other parts, and it has been successful. So where are we lacking, and is the auto industry getting its due? Where are the structural issues?
To really make sure that we can lift this industry and get it back on the growth pedal. So, which is including the way the scrappage policy is, or the way the BS4 norms are getting implemented. Because if you see, it's been one after the other, but there is no clear direction on how the execution and the implementation will really actually play out. And what is it that the OEMs and the industry should be planning for? I also see that there could be fundamental operating model changes that could be adopted from a consumer sentiment perspective.
Do you think that this potential can be given a fillip if there's policy intervention, and if non-facilitating policies of the past, such as GST, can be taken care of?
We started off with the reason 2019 was such a bad year, and we saw nearly a 40% drop from 2018, which was a record year. First started off with the financial crisis, where the NBFCs went into a crisis, and so pretty much the trucking industry, which consists of small individual owners who own between 1 and 5 trucks, 65% of the industry is made up of such owners. Stop funding them, and so pretty much if they don't get financing, they stop buying stuff. Second is they introduced a regulation where they legitimized overloading of vehicles, which means this has never happened anywhere else in any part of the world, where retroactively all vehicles which are already plying on the road were allowed to have up to 20% greater load carrying capacity, which has taken the entire industry's carrying capacity and automatically just bumped it up by 20%. With no structural change in the vehicle or any safety norms, etc. So you pretty much took away a year's worth of demand, or little more than that, just with these kinds of rules.
From your viewpoint, what do you see as the major challenges? What are the issues that really need to be addressed?
Driving the trends in the market. So the commute riddle as imposed by COVID is another major issue that we need to look at it. And then, Ashwath talked about CASE, the connected, autonomous, shared and electric. I think it's very important for the industry structurally to look at what is the long-term goal that we are looking at. Be very focused about investing into those long-term solutions rather than having knee-jerk responses in an aspiration to do everything on the canvas. And domestic competency and the capability to provide electric powertrain solutions, in our perspective as a battery manufacturer, is an extremely important agenda for us on the cards.
The latent demand that is there in the country.
First, like some of the panelists talked about, there is a need to look at the next generation growth model in some sense. So players are looking at deepening their presence in market spaces which are relatively underpenetrated today. So tier 2, 3 towns, and in some cases, in some segments, also looking at rural markets. So people are looking at, growing into these underpenetrated spaces. And associated with this growth model is also the question of what is the role of the future dealer, and how that's going to change. What is the shape and form of the direct to consumer proposition that the automotive industry will take? How is that likely to evolve? So that's one big focus area for OEMs. Second, I think there is a need, and we talked about it briefly, there is a need to aggressively look at leveraging digital, especially in the front end space for automotive players. Looking at, whether it's looking at analytics to understand, segment and target customers better, or raising, let's say, engagement quotient when consumers or customers visit dealerships, looking at tools like car configurators, driving simulators, and so on, or even looking at, making after sales far more convenient and easy.
So what is your sense of what are the demand drivers, that will drive growth?
Second quarter this year was completely, I would say, a washout. Now we see gradually the business coming back. And you're right, I would not think our customers don't have the money anymore. But there is still some pent-up demand, which is not happening into purchase at the moment. What we see month over month, we see quite significant increases. We see the sentiment is coming back to some extent. I personally always said we need freedom of movement also for our customers. I mean, even if you have the money, but if you sit home, how do you create the desire? And as funny as it sounds, my view is even you have to have international travel, you have to have intrastate, interstate, every type of movement that creates a dynamic and also positive attitude again, which I believe will gradually build up. And we are still hopeful that we see a positive trend also towards the festive season, that people also want to get over with it to some extent, even though it will not be over. And we see even the government is acting like this. I mean, our case numbers are not drastically reducing, but we go from unlock 1 to 3 to 4 because we need to get over with it. And that's I would say, human wish that is following here. And I believe we will see the demand coming back.
What are the demand drivers, Venkat, in a world where mobility is so restricted?
First of all, this coronavirus, we don't know how long it will stay. So there is a situation what we are in today, and we had a situation even before, whether it is BS4, BS6 or GST or many other the eventual stuff. But what is more important is how to create need in the marketplace where the demand starts propagating itself. And what we see in Renault is that rural market is picking up very, very quickly, maybe because of various issues of coronavirus or some earning power going back into the rural market and so on and so forth. We have seen 25% of our revenue coming out of rural market, and we see it growing month over month. And if you have seen that the growth rate at which we are today is moving much faster, thanks to a product called Triber, which is giving a lot of success to us. And we continue to work in the products of that innovation like Triber and so on and so forth. And we have further more products coming into the same platforms.
Now we have to keep the interest on. So product innovations, product launches, brand extensions, and then sales promotions like, limited editions and all those things will create the demand. And sometimes, those special limited editions for a special time, you create sense of urgency in consumer, they come and buy. We as a company, as a strategy, and I want to use this opportunity to say that we wanted to be differentiated, and we say, hey guys, how do we do it? See, I'm very proud to say this thing, thanks to my team. Hector, we have launched 1 year back. We haven't given a single rupee discount so far, and we are on a wait list. That's a fact. But we said we want to be differentiated, so it was a connected car. Then, and lots of guys say, 2G, 3G you have in India, and you want 4G connection, so why would you? That's a separate topic, and if there's an opportunity, I'll talk about that. Second, we said the EV. By the way, as we speak, every month we are getting 130 to 150 orders, and our EV is 22 lakhs to 25 lakhs of rupees. Okay, so 120 to 150 people, we already delivered 600 cars. Last whole year, EV four-wheeler sale was less than 1,000. And we have sold 600 cars already.
Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the technological developments that are taking place in the battery field, with lithium ion, and you're also part of the alliance, right, the global alliance. So if you could tell us a little bit about both these aspects, what are the technologies? Because if all these car makers are going to be bullish on EVs, they're going to need batteries. And what are the developments they should look forward to?
Batteries in general tend to be not very intelligent the way they are built in the previous application sectors. But there is increasing need for us to integrate batteries into the ecosystem around us, digitally connect them, and have remote data access. For example, today we run few thousands of telecom towers where we access the performance of the battery and the energy situation in the terminals from a remote way. And there are business models from product selling to energy selling transformations has already happened there, because I have the ability to look at the digitally monitoring what's happening on the energy situation in the tower.
Solution for India does not necessarily mean you have to build barriers. It has to be based on something which at the end is a stability of policies. We heard that earlier from Venkat, for example. It has to be based on a roadmap there, but also on harmonization of standards and of openness. Yeah, if we're not understanding that openness is a requirement and it's a bilateral situation with every, and that includes trade and duty situations and so forth, then we will not really ignite. So if I hear a solution for India, I'm completely fine with that. I completely understand the need, because on the ground, the world is very different in India than in any other country. And I have lived in many countries. But I would not want us to forget that at the end, the engine is not just now to dig in and to do India, India, India. It is about creating a framework which allows the Indian companies.
How are we as an industry going to really sit with the government and charter a path for India, keeping in mind the entire ecosystem, the way Vijay is talking, rather than only talk about our perspectives from, you know, the three layers that really affect this country a lot.
To prosper based on mid and long-term roadmaps, but at the same time on a spirit of openness, which at least for us as a global company as well is, I think, a need. And I think that will be the engine also for India. So standardization, harmonization, and stability on policies will definitely be suitable engines in my view.
Basically because of ecosystem availability. And whether it is two-wheeler, three-wheeler, or mass commute system where it has to be electrified, as Vijay said, I agree with that logic. But we also have to see that when we get into the rural market, or if you are expanding into the rural side, how much electricity is available. So the basic ecosystem of generating enough electricity to sustain, if all automotive industry gets into EV, then do we have enough power? So it starts back to that story, and then how qualitatively you are generating this electricity in the country. Whether are you using a nuclear reactor or a thermal station or hydro stations, you got to see how much pollution which that is creating. In order to save one city, you are going to spoil half the country because the electric generation is so large. And that's the starting point. And I would believe that yes, EV will take off in India, not at the pace at which we are all dreaming of. In next 5 years, we will sell about 500,000 to 1 million cars. I doubt that. I think it would take at least 10 years because it has to evolve in complete holistic ecosystem. It is not just automotive and the battery companies developing the technology and putting it on the four wheels to drive a car, but it has many other things, the way it has to develop, the acceptance, the cost, as well as the infrastructure needed when they're traveling from point A to point B. And the way today an ICE engine car travels from, say, Chennai to Delhi, will you be able to travel the similar way on the EV?
And I'm very glad. So in summary, I think we all agree that yes, there are stimuluses which as an industry, from a country perspective, government needs to look at, but there are enough and more initiatives as mentioned by Rajeev, Martin, yourself, Vijay, Ashwath, and Venkat, that you guys are taking to drive it, and those could be in the space of rural as a focus, it could be digital to really drive the front end, or could be the product innovations that Rajeev really pointed about. Thank you so much for your time, and these insights would really help us to take a step back and look at what is the next disruption that should really change the industry. As someone says, when you're not winning in the game, change the rules of the game. So I think that's where we are today. And thank you so much for your time.